Awesome. All right, yeah, whenever you're ready.
We're up and running?
Up and running.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to a special episode of the MulletCast, the podcast where business and pleasure collide. We're on location today in the Iron Room.
What?
My name's Evan Balmer.
My name's Mike Marcia. How's everyone going?
What's happening, Mike?
What's up?
Today we are joined by a couple people. One, special guest co-host Ming Chen. Ming is an international foodie and definitely is on the scene for this one. What's up, Ming?
It's an honor to be here, everybody.
And our guest today is executive chef Kevin Cronin of the Iron Room in Atlantic City. Check out the Iron Room at www.ironroomac.com and on Instagram at ironroomac. And you can check out Kevin's personal feed at Zeromine, Zeromine on Instagram. What's up, Kevin?
Nothing, man. How you guys doing? Thanks
What's
for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely.
No problem. Thanks for having us down as a guest. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. No, it's great.
So the Iron Room is quickly becoming an establishment in AC. You're definitely making some noise here. How did you get started? Tell us about your background as a chef.
Well, I don't know. I kind of worked all over the place for a while. Like, I'd moved to New York for several years. I was living in Philadelphia. I never went to culinary school, per se.
Right.
I just kind of, like, I cut my teeth down here at a really, really huge restaurant. And it was, like, at the time, we would do, like, 900 covers on a Friday night. This was, like, 20-plus years ago.
Right.
And the guy kind of took me under his wing and, like, taught me a bunch of stuff. And that kind of got my foot in the door when I went to New York. And it's like, make a sauce I could make what you needed. I could do a bunch of different variations of it, and it just helped me further my career in New York and Philadelphia as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know you got started, like, you were inspired by your family doing a lot
Right.
of cooking, like, around the holidays.
Like,
And
it was holidays and just dinners in general because my family, my mother's side of the family, specifically my grandmother, would cook a lot.
Right.
She would say she's Scotch-Irish, which is just kind of a joke if you know anything about what that means.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
It's just you're not Irish. You're not all Irish. That's all it means.
Right.
This is like, still when Irish were discriminated post or pre-Kennedy. So
Right.
anyway, so she would always cook, and her husband was Ukrainian Orthodox. So those holidays were huge. Easter, Christmas was always like pierogies, holubchi, kielbasa. Like, you'd go into the city to buy it at Philadelphia, bring it back,
Wow.
make the pierogies, make everything else that goes with it.
Right.
Yeah, and then my dad's side was I don't want to say rednecks, but they're like a bunch of country people from, like, Western PA, and
Right.
like my uncle would have elk around the house and venison from trips. So it was definitely a cool food upbringing.
Right.
That's
I didn't
awesome.
realize until
Yeah.
later in life how unique and diverse it was.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So when you were young, you just enjoyed the food. You weren't necessarily pitching in, helping, or
Like a little bit here and there, I would
Yeah.
try to do stuff, but it always came out kind of weird because you're a kid and you don't understand how things necessarily work yet.
Right.
So it's like I made pink bread one time. It was actually kind of good. Just looked weird.
Wait, how did it end up pink?
Paprika.
Ah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad's like, here's some dough and put whatever you want to in it and we'll cook it. And
Right.
it was like dried rosemary, paprika, and like some other stuff. And it came out all right, but it was just a weird color.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny you mention that because, like, my daughter's obsessed with, like, Kid Baking Championship and all these shows on Food Network.
Those are
Right.
great,
And
yeah.
I have no idea how these kids have, like, serious skills at a very young age these days. I don't know if it's because they have YouTube at their disposal or.
I think it's probably YouTube. They see an interest in it, and then I don't know how schools work these days, but if there's some kind of trade aspect to it, there might be some kind of like in-school
Right.
training for people who are interested in it.
Yeah.
Something that goes beyond home ec,
Right.
Yeah.
which was always an issue for me in high school. It was
Right.
like, this is kind of weird.
Right.
Just teaching people how to be like a housewife, essentially. Like,
Yeah,
you can sew a plush toy together and make a casserole. It's like, congratulations.
Yeah.
Like, some of us are serious about this at 17, 16
right.
years old. So
Is that when you found your passion at that age, or was it?
no, I just, it was a good way to kind of make money when I was like real young. It was like in the summers I could work as like a dishwasher or
Okay.
a short order cook or something like that.
Right.
And being in a shore town, it was easy. Being outside of Ocean City, that's what you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I actually didn't really aspire to do this as a career until I decided to leave college.
Okay.
So I left college and just kind of did this full time because the money at the time was really good.
Right.
And I was just going further in debt into college. So
Right.
yeah. I learned a trade that took me kind of anywhere I wanted to go. So yeah.
So you have traveled, like, to major cities and even outside the U.S. working in restaurants, right?
Yeah. I ran 2 places in Costa Rica. I worked in New York and Philadelphia. My father would bring me to Europe a lot when I was a kid, so we ate a ton of food. That's actually one of the first dishes I really learned how to cook.
Right.
Was dumplings, because I would like demand them from my dad. Like, we're in Austria, we're on this cultural trip. I'm 9 years old. I'm like, I get it. You want to go to you want to go to a museum, you want to see a wagon from 1630. I was
Right.
like,
Yeah.
I need some dumplings and some Vienna candies and ice cream in me, man, like now. So dumplings and pork chops was like my favorite thing. I would go crazy for them. Come home, Dad breaks his collarbone at work.
Right.
I have to cook. Learn how to forge his name. That backfired on me some years later for a demerit slip at Catholic school.
Nice.
Yeah, that was awful.
It's pretty funny. Like I recently actually had a flashback. I think that was my undoing. Like in 7th grade too. The French quizzes, like you used to have to get signed. And,
Right.
Yeah. As a 7th grader, your handwriting's not very adult-like.
No, not at all.
It's good to make that mistake when you're like 9 as
Right.
opposed to like 32.
Yeah, yeah.
Like on like real documents.
Yeah, and don't sign your dad's name with the Mr. prefix. on
That's
it.
what got me. That's what got me caught. I was like 11 years old,
Yeah,
man.
that's not a good. That never works out.
Kevin understands that he did poorly on this test, Mr. Cronin.
Yeah, Mr. Cronin, boom, done. It worked before. It's going to work again. It's
That's pretty
foolproof.
funny.
That's funny.
That's good stuff. All right, so now you're kind of reached the level of operating various restaurants. How did you get paired up with Mark Colazzo?
Craigslist.
Really?
It's
Wow.
just- yeah, it was like I answered an ad for a chef. I liked what the job described on the ad. I went up and interviewed with him at his office in
Right.
Lakehurst. And then he set up a cooking demonstration for me. It was me, I think 2 other people.
Right.
And he was pretty much dead set on this one guy. And I came in, did a cooking demonstration for him, and then just the job was offered to me the next morning.
No way.
Yeah.
Did you guys all cook the same thing?
I think that they kind of asked for like a version of every single thing.
Okay.
And then, so it's like you had to cook a steak to like medium rare, which is like a great test.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like you'd be surprised when people cannot do that, you know. And make a pasta, which is I made gnocchis. It's super easy for me to make gnocchis. So
Okay.
I don't need a machine. I can hand roll them all.
Right.
And I made those, and I did like they wanted to see like little tapas type stuff with very specific ingredients.
Nice.
Yeah.
So at the time, you were in Michigan, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
No,
right? You
no,
weren't?
no.
I
Never in
think
Michigan.
You really?
Yeah.
Wow, my info's maybe that's the guy they thought they wanted.
He's in Michigan. So
yeah, he's still out there. All right, cool. So, how was it launching the Iron Room and working with Mark?
It was great. I mean, it was a learning experience for me because it's like I've been, an employee of a new restaurant. I've seen new restaurants open, but this was the first time I had my hands in an actual opening.
Right.
Literally, this place was nothing. The floor was ripped up. The only thing that was in here was the bar. No shelves, no wall. It was a shell.
Right.
And I got to be a part of that from the very beginning, working with someone like Mark who has the resources to put something like this together and then sustain it, especially in the off season and everything, has been a great experience and a great asset to the Atlantic City.
Right.
What was the initial pitch for this place? The first time I came here about 3 years ago, I found out it was a wine shop, a bottle shop,
Right.
with a restaurant in the back.
Right.
And I was like, well, that sounds cool. I'm a big fan of hidden places and speakeasies. I love speakeasies.
Right.
But I heard the food was amazing as well. Did it start out as a bottle shop and then the restaurant decided to open? Did it all open at once? How was the concept pitched to you?
The concept was pitched to me exactly how it was. There was a bottle shop in the front and a small kind of restaurant tapas thing going on in the back. Because of delays with like Sandy and a few other issues, the bottle shop opened up first, technically,
Which was
up front. Yeah.
Okay,
And
okay.
then the lounge and restaurant aspect of it opened up second.
okay.
Once we got up and going, the bottle shop did well. There was definitely a lot of interest in the bottle shop, but the food and the cocktail program and the wine program is what really it took off.
Yeah.
And once we had the opportunity to expand into the front, we did, and it's been good. And we can't wait for we've had this expanded for a little bit, but we were just kind of keeping it low just because it was new to us, and how it happened was a disaster because
Yeah.
of the cold spell and the pipe breaking, which I won't get into because it's depressing.
Okay.
But yeah, and so but now we've got this fully functioning dining room. We have a great staff here, and we're really excited about everything.
Good beer selection.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm already tapping into
I
it.
curate that, so yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand you had to expand the seating in here, but I'll admit I do miss taking friends through the bottle shop.
Right.
And they're like, I thought we were eating. Where are we?
Yeah.
Are we getting wine first? I'm like, well, we'll get wine, but you would open the door in the back, and there would be people in there eating. There's a bar in here. It was
Right.
it's
So
really
so
amazing.
you would come through the street access that way?
You could,
walk through?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. And that was, a lot of people used to
insisted
love
on it,
doing
yeah.
that.
I
Yeah.
insisted on it.
That is a cool vibe.
Yeah, that is nice.
For
Yeah.
sure. So was it? Were you nervous about opening in Atlantic City just because of this is also a food destination in a lot of ways with a lot of very well known chefs dropping their names associated with different restaurants.
Right.
Was that like intimidating in the beginning?
Not at all, because none of those big chefs work here.
Right.
If they did, then yeah, it would be more intimidating.
Sure.
But it's just something that they hired to execute a menu, and they're never going to be there.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless it's a promo thing.
Right.
And that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Like they're busy with their flagships generally, and I get that.
Sure.
Like that's just a moneymaker for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is no worry about that, but it's got to still be hard to get attention with that as a backdrop, across town.
Well, I think that's why always here we preach that like everything has got to be as perfect as you can get it all the time.
Right.
Because if we slip up with a lot of these big places up here, and if we slip up consistently, they're going to find out, we're going to lose steam, and we're not going to be anything. So we really preach on like how the food's cooked here,
Right.
and we want it to be as serviceable as it would be for any of us when it goes out to you. And if there's a disagreement, there's a disagreement. But that's what we want. And we know that some of that inconsistency in some of the larger places are a little bit harder to always catch.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know for Ming, that's what attracted him to the Iron Room. Like he viewed it as this was going to save a trip to Atlantic City, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. Anytime I'm here, I insist on coming here. It's just a must visit place. Which is, I mean, you can have your big casino restaurants and your whatever the McCormick and Schmick's or whatever chain garbage they have out there. But I love, I just love how unique it is here, and the menu is always changing.
Yeah, we changed a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. We standardized some new dishes, but we do change the menu a lot, and there's always a decent amount of like interesting and kind of creative specials floating around. So yeah.
And then I know you preach fresh local ingredients and kind of regional items. What's kind of unique to this area that you bring into the Iron Room?
Well, mostly a lot of the times that's specifically unique to this area is it's very seasonal. So it's a lot of the produce that you get from the state of New Jersey.
Okay.
There is some nice cheese farms in the area, and there's like some dairy farms like on the western side of the southern part of the state.
Right.
So, but a lot of them aren't necessarily. They might be like I can't think of the name of it. Like they're more of like a collective, So like they might work with like 4 other like dairy farms to make milk for one place.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's just how it is.
A lot of local fish.
You can get local fish actually, but our most fish is you are unable. And this is a state of New Jersey thing. So
Okay.
striped bass, striper,
Yep.
is one of like that's what everybody wants to do. And anyone who fishes where I'm from, it's striper season all day.
It's still as small as
Yeah, so we can't
schoolies,
sell it in
yeah.
restaurants in down here. We're not allowed.
Really?
Yeah, it's all striper is only used for state export. So any striper that's caught off of our coast can only be sold in like Pennsylvania, New York, certain areas. We're not allowed to have. If I have it on my restaurant here, I can get a fine.
That's crazy.
Yeah, from like the EPA and other things because it's so well fished. But it's our fish.
Is that the only fish,
know?
or like does that apply to flounder?
No, that's
sea
the.
bass?
It doesn't apply to all of that. It just applies to this specific
Wow.
fish. Yeah, there might be a few more it applies to that I'm unsure of, but for striper, like you can't even put it on your menu. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I can get black sea bass by like the truckload.
Yeah.
Yeah, so which is good. It's
Yeah,
really
that's
good.
good eating,
but it's
yeah.
not striper.
Yeah.
Right.
So
That's wild. So what are some other what you would consider your signature dishes?
definitely the steak tartare that we do here.
Right.
So that's one of my
you had it?
favorite dishes, no matter what.
I have had it. Yes,
good.
it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And we actually just changed it all up too. So we're still utilizing the 2 sauces that we use on it. We make our own catsup here,
Right.
and then we use Dijon mustard. But now we've kind of added a chicken yolk to it, a little bit of olive oil, and some capers, caper berries.
Right.
It's really good. It's
Right.
wanted to make more of a traditional tartare, like something that I was proud of mine, but I really wanted to kind of show off where it comes from, like
Right.
how you would normally eat it.
Right. I mean, that definitely brought a big smile to Ming's face.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it did. On the current menu now, are there any like the top 3 must-haves in your opinion?
Well, there's always the greatest hits that everyone talks about. So, there's always the bacon, the mac and cheese. Everyone loves the burger, and everyone loves the actually, the tartare is actually a very popular dish, too.
Right.
But the fried chicken's really good that we do. And a lot of our a la carte vegetables I'm really proud of. We have a good vegetarian lineup here. So even like our asparagus with the Japanese mayonnaise, and we preserve our own lemons here. marinate them in ancho chili. So it's a little spicy, a little smoky, citrusy, mayonnaise-y on top of grilled asparagus. And
Wow.
that's something that's like you wouldn't think. It's just, it's just off to the side. But
Right.
it's kind of like almost like having like a deconstructed hollandaise from a steakhouse on it, you know?
Right.
It's not, I don't really want to call it deconstructed because that to me is just,
So
it's
like
a bit
overplayed.
much.
these
Yeah,
days?
it's just like I'm just gonna like maybe it's just me being lazy and not making a hollandaise, but it takes
Right.
3 weeks to preserve lemons, you know, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, so it's something that we're proud of, and the dish tastes really good.
Right.
So
What are some other techniques you apply? You mentioned earlier, like pickling some items. What other kind of things do you do here that put a unique spin on your dishes?
well, we break down a lot of our own meats, and we use everything that we can for sauces and specials and stocks, and you know, when I get a case of chickens in, the chickens immediately get broken down, their bones get roasted, they get used for making stock. So we use that later for sauce, soups. If I need to deglaze something later on, I'll use chicken stock. Like if I'm roasting lamb bones or if I'm roasting venison bones, then we might deglaze with some of that house, we'll call it a poultry stock, because 1 week a duck could be in there, 1 week something else could be in there with
Right.
it, you know? So, and we're always trying to utilize all of it. If we get a bag of livers, then we make pate. You know, that's just how it works. If we don't get a bag of livers, we're like, oh man,
That's right.
Yeah.
That might be a new saying. If life gives you a bag of livers,
yeah, you make pate, man,
like
like for
that.
sure.
I like that.
I take pate any day over lemonade. Any way to
Yeah,
get
yeah.
lemonade. A good
Yeah.
pate, man.
and Ming, what was it you mentioned earlier? Fiddlesticks.
Fiddleheads.
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 Yeah, fiddles is a seasonal vegetable. They grow in like a spiral. They look like the end of a fiddle, like the neck of a fiddle.
Right.
And they're an amazing vegetable. They're not seasonal for very long, and I had them here when they were in season. They're really amazing.
Right.
And they're basically fern sprouts. So they're ferns that sprout out, and you pick them right away before they completely unravel.
Right.
So when the fiddle unravels, it then leaves out into big ferns, and it turns into like
okay.
the East Coast fern that you would see growing in like New Jersey and
Oh,
other
wow.
places. Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, to me, that's the most impressive part of that story is Ming ate those like 3 years ago, and he rolled up and he's still like.
Yeah, it was the first
thing he
he's
said.
Still excited about it, you know. So they had to be good.
Sometimes you have that one dish, especially here at the Iron Room, where you wake up and you dream about it. It's like, oh man.
And I don't even remember what dish you had with the fiddleheads that long ago. I have no idea what it was.
I want to say that they were just fiddleheads. They were just on the menu. I don't know if they were a side. They could have been.
That makes
but
sense. I probably would have done something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, they were really good.
Right.
What's the culinary scene like here in Atlantic City? I know people come here, they gamble. They just, if they win money, they go get a steak over like the Borgata or whatever.
Right.
The people that come here, as I know you go out and you talk to the diners here.
Yeah.
Do you feel, they appreciate the food? Like I went on Google and I specifically searched for the best place in AC. Do you find the people who come here actually make that effort, or, the people wandering from, the street to come here?
I think sometimes people want to come here. So when they're in town, and especially we get a lot of people from out of town, as a lot of places in AC
Yeah.
does. We do have a good local support system as well. So that's always nice that they're here all year round. We don't get a lot of foot traffic here, so people don't tend to just kind of walk in.
Okay.
Yeah, but with if the neighborhood changes a little bit, sometimes you might see some bicyclers or something like that might stop in or something like that. So it's mostly just a route in and out of town, super quick. That's not the expressway.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not too familiar with the layout of Atlantic City, but I do know we're a couple blocks from the Boardwalk, which
Yeah.
is the hot spot. Was that a big fear factor tying into a spot in this area, or?
I think that there was already an established property over here that was doing well.
Okay.
So, and we felt that we're not competing directly with them or anything like that. So it kind of worked out where we were trying to have an area where people would drive to.
Okay.
And support that area. And the guys who own the place around the corner, they're from that area. They're from this area, so they do really well. Most of us are kind of like outsiders, but like I said, we have a really good local support system as well. So.
Right.
That's awesome.
That's
Yeah.
cool. So when you opened up, actually, I was going to talk about the menu. You mentioned your burgers
Yeah.
before, and it's funny because I was scrolling through your menu, and there's a lot of like awesome-looking dishes and things you can't find anywhere else. But I kept going back to the burger. I'm like, it's funny. I'm gonna go down there, and I'm probably gonna really want the burger because it
I'm
looks
gonna
so
get a burger.
intense. So, take us through your burger prep. What makes it special?
So it's 8 ounces of the Snake River Kobe.
Wow.
So the Snake River Farms, I believe, is I want to say like Montana or Idaho.
Okay.
I forget exactly where it is, but they're a American Kobe beef producer. They're used at Thomas Keller uses them at one of his restaurants in New York. Not per se the more like I don't want to say dinerish for him, but more like bistro-ish restaurant.
Gotcha.
He uses them for certain dishes down there, and it's incredible meat. We use that. We use a brioche bun that's made here in Atlantic City. We make our own pickles, our own dill pickles here.
Right.
We make our own catsup, like I said before.
Right.
It's hand-cut fries, heirloom tomato, lettuce, and what is it, bacon?
I'm totally getting this.
My mouth's watering,
I'm
man.
sold.
and Leidy's bacon,
Right.
which is a really good like all natural cure bacon.
And where's that from?
It's from the Midwest. I always
Okay.
forget.
Right.
Yeah.
And,
That's
yeah,
cool.
you had me at Snake River Farms. They're pretty
I know.
serious,
Yeah, they're solid.
serious,
Yeah.
solid, a producer of beef and meats.
Right. That's insane. So part of being a chef today must be researching like these ingredients and providers, right?
Yeah, no,
So I mean,
for
are you
sure.
constantly just working that overdrive, finding the best providers for items?
For the most part, but I think that everyone now is kind of, because certain things have tend to like not dominate but really make their presence known in the market, that you see some kind of like scaling to it or industrial, like partial industrialization of it, where they don't want to go next level where some of the complaints are coming from,
Right.
but they keep it in an area where you can get national distribution. So Snake River Farms, because they get national distribution, is how I'm able to know about them.
Gotcha.
Why they come to New York and Philadelphia and Atlantic City,
Right.
when normally they wouldn't.
Right.
But they're designed to do that. You know, like that's the design of that company, is to make money off of their beef.
Sure.
So selling it wherever they're from, what I said, Idaho or Montana, is not going to keep the lights on.
Right.
And,
totally.
a lot of people now look for the free range food, the grass fed.
Right.
So you look for that when picking out a vendor as well.
We try to as much as possible. You know, I mean, all of that stuff can be kind of like the wording of it's pretty finite. So
Yeah.
So you have to kind of
Cage-free, it's
right.
like,
Yeah, it's like it's a cage, but
Yeah.
it's like just a bigger cage than what
Yeah.
you're used to seeing. Right.
It's got a little kickstand. They can open the door whenever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they
they,
want.
can, they can pop in and out whenever they want. Yeah, it's
Totally.
easy.
What about other chefs? Are you constantly keeping an eye on what other chefs are doing, and are there any people in particular that you really admire?
Well, in Atlantic City, I mean, there's always the guys that came before here. So there's a lot of people that worked, who really sweated out and worked hard in a lot of these Atlantic City restaurants, like the ones in the casinos.
Right.
So without them, there's no Iron Room. There's none of these places.
Right.
You know, otherwise it's just because if it's a place that people know they can get good food at like a large scale level, then maybe there is something outside that's worth having. And now they're finding out that there is. And there's us here in the Iron Room, and then there's obviously in Ventnor, there's Cardinal Bistro,
Right.
run by Chef Mike Brennan, who's a really talented young chef and has a lot going for him in that area. And he's a BYOB, so if you're like a real wine snob, you just bring something over there and they'll take care of you. And he's got a fantastic menu. And there's little places in Atlantic City, like there's some great Vietnamese restaurant right outside of town here. There's insanely good tacos down the street that way.
Really?
Yeah. So there's lots of cool places like that to eat in Atlantic City as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I'm gonna eat so much today.
I know.
I'm just like talking about food. It's,
So one of the reasons we came here is also a convention. There's a realtor convention happens to be going on now called Triple Play. How much of your business is tied to like the convention scene in town?
Lots, actually. Yeah, we get a lot of business from conventions, so we're always happy that they're happening here in Atlantic City, because it brings so many people to town. They find out about our place, and hopefully we get return business out of that. Not just annually, but maybe even off convention too. If somebody's here for the weekend, like, oh, last time I was there, I was in the Iron Room, and it was absolutely unbelievable, and we should go back again. So that's
Yeah.
usually what happens.
Right.
I find conventions, networking opportunities, correct? So you want to bring people here to impress them.
Yeah.
And I definitely do that.
Yeah.
I first came here. There's the Atlantic City Boardwalk Convention. It was a Comic-Con 2015 or 16, I think, and that's when I first came here.
Yeah.
Next year I came to another comic convention at the Showboat. Absolutely disastrous. And the only thing that saved that weekend was coming here. So, and I brought two fellow guests. I was like, "You want to salvage this weekend? I got a good place I'll take you to. You'll forget all about this crappy weekend, and all you'll talk about is the great food you had here." So thank you.
Yeah, no problem, man. I appreciate it.
Like
Thank you.
seriously, and they're still friends with me to this day. They still talk about it. That was like about almost 2 years ago. So,
That's great.
Right.
Just
Yeah, I mean, totally. That is the game, right? Is like to get someone, you got to see this place and take them off the
Yeah.
beaten path a little
Yeah.
bit. Right?
Yeah.
So that's cool. So that's what happened to us. Is we were actually had Mark Colazzo as a guest on the MulletCast, and we talked a lot about the Iron Room, and so he was, happy to put us in touch with you, and we
Right.
appreciate you talking with us.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So once again, we're joined by Chef Kevin Cronin. Check out the Iron Room at ironroomac.com, on Instagram at ironroomac, and your personal Instagram at ZeroMine. So I think what we're going to do is we're definitely going to dig into some food
100%,
and then
yeah.
talk about that. If you want to pop in again, hopefully we'll talk about some dishes or something
Sure.
like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. All right, Kevin, thanks for joining
Thank
us.
you
Yeah,
so
no
much.
problem, guys. Thanks for having me
you,
on.
man.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right.